Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, I want to address something right off the bat. I gather information from many different places and many different people. So if you hear yourself in our conversation today, please remember it is not all about you. Today, I'm going to tackle something that it just kind of put a burr under my saddle blanket this morning. You see, I went to a meeting that was supposed to be a reorganization, restructuring of a company. Now, the company is it's a incubator or a think tank, you might call it. It's a place where people can go who are starting their brand new companies and get information and learn from people who are already been there, done that, and got all the t-shirts. Well, it's been going on for right around 3 years, and the person that was in charge, boy, did a heck of a job and really did their best to put this stuff together. But at every turn, they were just stymied by the people on the board. And that's what I want to talk to you about. You see, in a nonprofit, it's so important that the board is chosen for certain reasons. And those reasons is they know how to run a company. And or they come with some pockets full of change and they can help finance. So you see, in a nonprofit, it oftentimes, I remember I've been on boards where I had to pony up some money just to be on the board. And it was a privilege. You see, because what we're providing a service to the people. And that's what was happening here. But the people on the board, unfortunately, weren't quite the right people and kept stymieing this person, just stopping all the thought process. And so it's been 3 years, and now that person really has made a decision to go and find a job where they can be paid appropriately. Well, today we met at a reorganizational meeting, and the gentleman, the board person that was in charge, nice person, but unfortunately hadn't been in the business world in a while and maybe had some old business thought theology. And that is what's going to take this down and probably not be able to resurrect it. So let me give you some pieces to think about. First of all, if you're on a board of any kind of an organization, especially nonprofit, one of your biggest things is to bring in some money. You see, you can't operate and help people unless you have the appropriate skeletal opportunity arrangement. In order to do that, though, you have to what? Make sure that you have something to offer the people to get them to come out. And if you're looking for support from people who with deep pockets, they have to see some reason they want to put their money into it. So what's the product that you're providing? It's like any other company. What's the product that you're inviting? And I think that's the first thing that we need to really look at. You see, I took a bunch of notes today, and that irritated the person in charge. It irritated him because I was taking notes, and I said to him, all this information that you have on your PowerPoint, can we get it provided to us? Well, after a lot of conversation, it was decided that we'll be able to get it. But you see, we were asked to come and help with a reorganization opportunity. We couldn't do that without that information. We didn't know what the budget was, how much money they had, and what did they need to sustain themselves. Without that information, we're all just, we're going in the wind and hoping we don't get wet. And let me tell you, it doesn't work that way. So if you're going to look to reorganize, first of all, I would make sure that the board was all on board and they were all present, of which they weren't this morning. Second of all, that each one of those people have a duty or a job that they have really committed to. If it's financial, it's raising the money. If it's being the secretarial, it's doing that. If it's doing the follow-up of people who come, it's doing that. No matter what the job entails, it needs to be fleshed out in such a point that They know exactly what they're in charge of and what they're asked to do. You see, that has to happen before they can actually say yes or no to the position. Now, I often said it was amazing to me that A, they didn't know how much it cost to run the organization. B, the person that was in charge had done no homework to find out what other organizations that are running correctly or up and going, they'd done no preparation. You know, here at the Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development, we always encourage that number one thing is to do the research first. Find out what other people are doing, how they're doing it, and how they're being successful. Do the research. The second part is you need to be prepared. So if you've asked some people to come and help you with the reorganization, you need to be prepared with a lot of different things. One, the vision of the organization. Exactly. And it has to be really what you're all about. It can't be, well, we're just going to help people get their company started. What's that mean? The mission. Why are you all called together? What is exactly we do here and why? And three, you've got to have your strategy put together. You see, having an open meeting where everybody comes and palavers and just says out their thoughts and processes, that's all well and good as a collection to begin, not a time to reorganize. The time to reorganize is getting that core group together and saying, okay, we need X amount of money. Let's build the budget first. You see, without building the budget, without having your vision and your mission, you can't build a budget. And without the budget, you can't do any money raising. You can't do any going out and seeking funds from organizations or people with deep pockets. It just doesn't happen. One of the organizations that I felt was really on board with this was an organization I belonged to for, well over 30 years. And being on the board, you knew right up front that you were going to ask for a commitment of, well, at that time it was $1,000. And that was a lot of money back 30 years ago. But I felt it was so important that this organization was up and running, I was willing to do it. So the first $30,000 came from the board. And because we had put our money where our mouth was, it was very easy to go out into the community and solicit some more funds to operate the organization. Now, whatever you put in, you need to get back. It's what's your value that you're making happen. For me at that time, the value was watching young people go and grow into great leaders. And so that was a value that I chose to do. The value in any organization has to come first. You have to know what your vision, your future plan is. You have to know your mission. Okay? A mission is your purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? And can you explain it to people in a way that they'll understand? Then and only then can you start looking at the strategy. But the strategy in each piece is going to have a budget. What's it going to cost to put on a coffee? Well, they couldn't even tell us that. So I said, well, if we all kick in $5 around the table, is that going to cover the coffee today? Well, the answer was no. We were meeting at a golf country club, and they had provided coffee and pastries. Come to find out, it was dang near $300. And we couldn't guarantee how many people were going to show up. And because there was only 12 of us there, well, we didn't have near enough money. So there we were back begging for money. That just doesn't work. When you're always chasing the money, whether it's for profit or non-profit, I guarantee you that people get wore out pretty darn quick. Even if you have a value proposition that makes sense to them, you keep banging in poor mouth, pretty soon they're going to say, well, these folks ain't got their stuff together. We need to go somewhere else. And that's what happened. So let me give you some opportunity wise. First of all, you really do need that vision and mission in order to take and create a budget so you can do your strategy. There is no doubt about it. Second of all, you need to simplify as much of the organization as you can. So if your overhead is too much, you need to find out every place in it that you can chop or you can remove or you can do without for the time being. Now, it doesn't mean it's still not built into the budget. You're still not going to attain that. But at the time being getting started, we need to know exactly what you need to get started. And you need to have anywhere from 6 to 12 months in the bank before you open the doors. And I always tell people it really should be 1.5 to 2 years in the bank. The reason for that is if you're spending all your time in the first 6 months or first 9 months trying to raise money, you can't really help the people that you want to help, and you really can't put on a program that you really want to put on. It's really not that difficult of thinking. It really means this. Instead of fire, aim, ready, it's ready, aim, fire. Do the research, get prepared before you execute the plan. Sounds pretty simple, but it seems organizations run into this over and over. They get all excited. They want to get, somebody has an idea and they get excited. They want to open the doors immediately. And you know what happens is they fall on their nose and then they go, well, gee, we've been struggling for 3 years. What are we going to do? And the person that they hired to do it had been stepped on so many times. Well, you know, they've had a promise of being paid appropriately. And after 3 years, their significant other said, you know, you're putting a lot of time and effort in this thing, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. That's a hard decision to have to make. So simplify the organization as much as you can. You need to really come to some clarity of direction. The clarity of direction stems from what are you offering? What's the value you're bringing to the people that you want to join? And over, you know, you can't do it for free. Free means exactly what it is. It's free. And here's what I've learned over many years. If people don't pay, people don't listen. It's just, if you have no stake in the game, well, it's not a big deal. So if you're just coming for free coffee and donuts, boy, I'm not so sure you're really involved. So you really need to have this clarity of direction. You need to focus all your energies on the vision and mission. If you're as a board, you're not focusing that energy on there, how can you provide the folks what you're saying you're going to do? Now, one of the things that showed clearly today in this meeting is the gentleman who was running it could not remain calm during the conversation. He kept trying to quiet people by, shutting them up. Well, if you're in a reorganization situation, you want all the ideas you can get. You need to know that this is going to last more than maybe an hour, and you need someone who's going to take excellent notes. And there was no one there taking notes except for, the old Wrangler. And he wasn't real happy that I was taking notes. Or I asked for the paperwork that they were providing on a PowerPoint, which left everyone sitting around, the reason they didn't take notes was because there was no reason to. They weren't involved. They weren't asked anything. And when they were, they started a discussion, and it was shut down pretty quick. If you're going to be on the board, I'm going to encourage you to work with someone to develop your mental toughness. Your mental toughness comes from because there's going to be people who are going to buck the board. There are going to be people who want more. You need to know what it is you stand for. What is your vision and mission? Who it is and what it is we're trying to take and do here. And what's the product or end outcome that we're going to provide? If you can't tell them the end outcome, by golly, you need to get back to the drawing board and figure it out. Get some clarity of where you're going and how you're going to go do it. Here's the big one. And whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, one of the biggest things that I encourage is learning how to anticipate the needs. Now, to me, that's what this meeting was today. They were going to gather what the people needed, but they didn't listen. They didn't write it down. They didn't report on it. So why even have anybody at all? Why show up if you're not going to take and follow through? A friend of mine always said the fortune's in the follow-up. Well, I guarantee this one is true. I asked the board if there was a list of potential people, members, or in the organization. They said they had a list of over 2,000 people. And I said, you had a list of over 2,000 people and there's only 12 people here today. What do you think the problem is? Does anyone follow up with all those folks who aren't here, who haven't been here? I said, do you have their phone number or what? Well, we have their emails. I said, so you've got a big email list. How great is that? And how's that working out for you? 12 people, 2,000 people on your email list. No follow-up. No ask for. There was no ask of being involvement. You know, I have to tell you, it got to be funny after an hour and a half. And I said to him, are we done? And everybody else in the room said, oh, well, I'm done. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to still work and tried my best to get this thing up and running. But no, I did not say yes to being on the board. I did not say yes because I didn't feel that this was an organization that I feel that is going to provide for the needs. It might in the future. I'm not so sure it's going to survive. The big thing that I'm going to encourage always, if you're on a board, is to think in the offensive instead of the defensive. Always be out there looking to what you can do, what you can add, what you can provide, instead of always defending what you're doing. And if I ever hear it comes out in a meeting, well, this is what we've always done, I'm going to tell you what, if it's what you've always done, you're getting what you've always got. And I guarantee you that that's not a whole big plus. Because things change. Like the gentleman in charge today, he's a great guy and he probably had a big business in the past. But you know what? You cannot resurrect or what you did in the past to make it work today. It does not work that way. You need to do the research, find out what's going today. Now, developing SOPs, standard operating procedures. This needs to be done at the board level. This needs to be done so each job or each opportunity has a written piece of exactly what the budget is, who's in charge, who do they report to, what it is exactly we're going to be doing, what it is exactly that we're going to be offering, what it is exactly how we're going to do it, the who, what, when, where, how. You see, that is what each piece must have. So standard operating procedures are a good thing. Who's going to open the meeting? What are we going to say? How are we going to run it? There is a great company that I tell you, when I go to their meetings, I just totally love it. The person in charge that runs the meeting has a little flip chart that they use right in front of them to make sure that they're on board. And there's a timekeeper over next to them to kind of make sure they keep it on board. There's a person sitting next to them who is the note taker. Now, I enjoyed watching this person because they not only took notes, but they told everybody to begin with that they were going to record the meeting. How great is that? And here's the best part. That person taking those notes I found in my email inbox by the time I got back to my office. They had already got them correlated and put in there. So I had them. They also, what I found is 5 days prior to the next meeting, I had the agenda of what was going to be happening and how it was going to be discussed and what was going to, That gave me time to get a hold of people that I needed to talk to before the meeting. Maybe even make some decisions. You see, that's the part that keeps on going. So standard operating procedures become not only just the way we run it, it becomes how we run it. Now, I'm going to really stop here and tell you this. None of that stuff's written in stone. You can change it at any time. Standard operating procedures can be changed to be improved, or things that can be removed that just didn't matter anymore. And so they need to be looked at all the time. Is this a good way for us to do it? Is this a good way to continue? Is there something I need to add? Is there something I need to remove? Who do I need to bring on, and who do I need to let go? While I'm at it in this situation, I am going to talk about board members, and to me, board members are just like fish coming into your house. After 3 days, they both stink. The board member is on a certain board in that certain position for more than 3 years, they're going to be able to get stagnant, because here's what happens. It takes the first year to really learn what the heck you're supposed to do. The second year, you get real excited and you try to do your best to put things in the thing. And the third year, you're getting tired. That third year, you ought to be really helping the person who's just come on the board, who's going to replace you. You see, that makes 2 deep leadership. Now, I learned 2 deep leadership a long time ago when I was a senior patrol leader at Boy Scout troop. And I didn't quite get it back then. It kind of rankled me a little bit that I had to have an assistant senior patrol leader, somebody to come alongside me. But as I grew companies one after another, I found out that 2 deep leadership was, it's not only a smart thing, but it was a real smart thing. But after 3 years, you need to step away. Now, that doesn't mean you need to step away from the organization. It doesn't mean you need to step away from maybe even the board, but do something different. When you're on a board, you need to ask yourself this question. What do I bring to this board that no one else can bring? What's my value? You see, even in a nonprofit organization, you have to ask that question. If you're just going to be on the board and sit there like a lump, you never bring anything to the forefront, you don't really provide any new ideas, well, here's what I'm going to tell you. They don't need you, and you should be someplace else. That's why I tell you, look at this 3-year plan. Look at this 2 deep leadership opportunity. I've got so dang many notes here that I'm having a hard time just trying to get them across to you. But SOPs. It's pretty exciting stuff. I bet you have heard somewhere, use the KISS system. Keep it simple. And there's a whole lot of things on that last one, okay? But keep it simply simple. You see, Albert Einstein said this. If you can't explain it in just a few words, you don't know it well enough. And what he meant by that is that people only listen to so much. You need to get short and sweet. You need to condense it. So if you're a speaker and you're at this board meeting, make sure that you've done your homework. That's the one thing that kind of lit my fire this morning. The poor person who is taking over the board couldn't give us what the budget details were. They couldn't provide what they owed people. They couldn't provide what it was going to take to sustain the organization even till the end of the year, which is 2 months away. They couldn't tell us what it would take to sustain it and really build it. They had no ideas of how to bring in revenue. And they just didn't do their research. So when I was asked that pointed question, well, what's it going to take and do this? I said, well, I've done some research, and it takes between $250,000 and $300,000 to run this kind of an organization. They sat there and looked at me. They've been running it on $500 a month. That meant the person who was in charge, the organizer, was putting in a whole lot of hours for no money. They were working for free with the promise that somewhere down the line they would get paid. Now, I think they owe that person a lot of money. I'm very happy that they were able to provide themselves a position and that they're going to be compensated for what they're worth. But it is sad that this organization is now going to go through a real downturn or even a down and out. Doesn't mean that people like me who, if I get a phone call, won't help them. I will. The thing what I'm going to look for is, are they willing to put some things in place? Are they willing to really spend the time to put together a vision of what the future picture for this organization looks like? And you can't do that in an hour. You can't do that in 2 hours. Sometimes it takes longer even than that. The thing you can come up with is a mission. Why are we doing what we're doing? And that oftentimes tends to look at the value that we think we're going to be able to bring and the people that we want to bring in. And that leaves us to go into the budget. I hate to say it always comes down to money, but you know what? Even nonprofits need money to run. You have things like a website. Well, it's only $14 a month, they said. I said, well, who's paying that? Well, right now, I run a website thing, so I'm just kind of providing it. Okay, that's good. Well, so that's what you're paying every year. So you're going to deduct that, right? They didn't even have a clue about it. It didn't have a clue. The other person I asked, I said, what about this building where we meet? Well, they told us if we buy the coffee and donuts, well, they'll give us the room for free. I said, so the room ain't free. You see, they didn't know what the real cost of what it costs to make things happen. So I said, well, what's the coffee and donuts cost? Well, they said, let me see here. Oh, $2.78 a week. I said, you realize most of those Danish are left over on that plate every week, right? So nobody really eats them. People drink coffee, maybe. I said, so, with 12 people, that's a real expense. They said, well, I don't know. One of the guys spoke up. He said, well, we can meet at McDonald's and buy our own dang coffee. I said, well, if only 12 of us, that's a possibility. You see, he was thinking correctly. How do we reduce the amount of money that it costs to operate so we can get our ducks in a row and then rebuild this opportunity? And they said, well, gee, we owe $350 here. I said, well, so you're already in the red. That's when it really started to unravel. That's when they really started digging into the paperwork and trying to find out how to really sustain. Now, here's the bottom line of what happened today. After an hour and a half, the gentleman who was running the opportunity was pretty frustrated. The people on the board that were there, all 2 of them out of 7, were really frustrated. And the people who were asked to come and help reorganize and redesign were really frustrated. As everybody walked out, everybody had the same thing. I don't think it'll survive. They didn't have the information for us to make decisions on. And that, my friends, is what causes the decline of any business, whether it's for-profit or non-profit. I see my time has come to a close, and I want to send you off with this information. On behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, I want to say thank you for being a part of today's conversation. Now, our hope is that you have received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you become a better leader. Now, if you have any questions, I want you to do me a favor. Give me a call. 727-422-1833. 727-422-1833. I want you to send me an email, dick@ewfw.org. dick@ewfw.org. Or you know what? Go to the website, spend some time, look around. There's a place there to send me a note, www.ewfw.org. And you know what? Why don't you invite me to come out and do a leadership organizational presentation with your group? And just give me a call and make that happen. Now, until next time, DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.